Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the 86 F's to Give podcast. I'm your host, Al, and I'm so grateful that you are joining me for another episode of my podcast. I hope you all enjoyed last week's episode. That was our third ever guest on the podcast, and it was my first guest that wasn't like one of my friends or family members. And I mean, now I think we're going to be friends, but it was cool to kind of have my first experience reaching out and asking somebody to be on the pod that, very well could have said no. And I'm just really proud of how the conversation went. And I hope she had a good time doing the podcast. So if you haven't listened to my episode with Kayla Wood, she's a professional lacrosse player, go check it out. I think we had a really awesome, healthy conversation around identity and mental health of athletes and kind of all the things that fall under those umbrellas, while also shining light on women's lacrosse and, the awesome things that are happening in that world right now. So go check it out. I'm really proud of it. And yeah, I'm looking forward to having more people on the pod. I've been talking to a couple more friends of mine and have some people that I want to reach out to. So stay tuned for some more guests. Those are some of my favorite episodes that I've put out. And I think I learn the most about myself when I have guests on, because obviously you hear more people's perspectives and things like that. So I'm just really grateful for, those experiences. So today's episode, we will be 86ing, doing and accepting the bare minimum. And I'm really excited to talk about both ends of this spectrum, because I feel like I am somebody that naturally, I was just raised more so my mother. Love you, Dad, but I think it's more of a female thing to just go above and beyond sometimes, and it just more so paying attention to detail, I think kind of falls under this as well. Whereas my dad and brother might be okay, I did what I was asked, but I'm not going to do more, go above and beyond, which is fine, right? You're still doing the task. But I think my mom really instilled in me that especially, she would always say to me, if you want something done right, do it yourself. If you want something done now, do it yourself. If you, I would ask her to make me a sandwich or something, and she'd be well, I can do it in a half hour. And I'm well, I'm starving. She's okay, well then do it yourself, right? So I feel there's a lot of things that fall under this umbrella for me, and I'm excited to kind of tie them all together in today's episode. But as somebody who was always kind of made fun of more so in honestly all through schooling, of just being an overachiever or a kiss ass to the teacher or the teacher's pet, I always took that as a bad thing. But I am looking back on it now, I'm proud of, maybe there was times where I never felt like I was doing the things I was doing to be a suck up to the teacher or to get a good grade. I mean, obviously I was doing it to get a good grade, but I wasn't doing it to be the teacher's favorite. Although most of my teachers would tell my parents that I was their favorite. So, I mean, sorry if any of you had class with me in elementary school. I'm just kidding. But no, it was never that was never the reason. I just enjoyed doing things full out. I just care very deeply about the things that I do and that I care about. And don't get me wrong, there are plenty of things where I'm checking boxes, right? I'm okay, I did this to the best I can do it. I probably could have done more, but right now that's all I have in me. So I'm just doing it to check the box. Obviously we all have areas of our lives that we just kind of do things like that. I'm not saying you have to be going above and beyond in every single thing you ever touch and do. Obviously there's days where that's just not realistic. So, and that is totally how I am too. I'm not out here bragging about being an overachiever, because truly there are certain areas of my life that I strive to overachieve in, and there's other areas of my life that I'm definitely underachieving, if not just barely achieving, right? So, and I think that's kind of why I want to talk about it today, to help motivate myself to kind of pick up the slack in some of those other areas, and maybe also not be so anal about some of the other areas that I'm okay, this has to be perfect, I think that whole concept of teacher's pet, and obviously it's little 8, 10, 15-year-old boys calling me that when I was in school and stuff, and they were honestly probably flirting with me, because that's what they do. They make fun of people when they're flirting. Segue back to the episode about boys will be boys. We let them get away with so many things because they're, anywho, we don't need to go on a tangent about that in this episode. But, looking back, it felt like such a hurtful thing for people to say at the time. And now I'm actually I'm proud that a 10-year-old me and 15-year-old me was like cared so much about the things that she was doing and put in so much effort and asked for help and went to the teacher's extra credit things and, asked questions when I wasn't sure, and I asked my parents for help creatively with things, and I did the extra little assignments outside of class and entered competitions and did things like, it was fun for me. And I think if you're somebody that enjoys doing things that are considered above and beyond or overachieving, like that is totally okay, and it's a good thing, right? Like people are just jealous and they're projecting that they aren't like that onto you, and that's why they are making comments or making fun of, I know my mom always like will have people sometimes make comments on the way that she dresses. Like I know she would, come to pick me and Christian, my brother, up from like elementary school. She would walk down to the elementary school to come pick us up and walk home with us. And people would make comments on like why she looks so nice to, just come pick us up from school or whatever. And now that I'm thinking back, I'm like, people knew that my mom was a stay-at-home mom. She like had her own like side businesses and stuff, but I'm like, people were probably saying that because they were like, oh, you're just at home, like why are you dressing up? And also they were obviously jealous that like she looks so good, because if you know Yolanda Cuccinata, she can put on a fit and she just presents herself well. And that's like, I think not only as a woman but as a Black woman, that was something that was important to her and is important to her and has since been important to me. And so it was awesome to see my mom in a fire fit running up to her from second grade, like I love that. But people would just make comments, and I think it's something that like if you are somebody that's not like a natural overachiever, go above and beyonder, I think people feel kind of jealous and like bitter towards other people that are. And I don't know, I want to kind of dissect that in today's episode as well, because it's just like do better. If you're jealous of somebody like looking so put together or, putting this much energy into this part of their life, like you could also do that. You don't have to be jealous or bitter or like putting out nasty energy towards them. Like you could also just be like, oh, I'm going to maybe be inspired by that and take that into my everyday and try to be a little bit better with, how I present myself or the energy that I put into this X, Y, and Z, whatever. Right. So I think what I want to do is talk about doing the bare minimum first. We're going to 86 doing the bare minimum. And again, not in every single thing that we do, but when there's things that we want to do well in, or, our jobs or things that matter or like affect our everyday life or just the quality of our lives, right? Like we want to not just settle for doing the bare minimum. And then we'll circle back to talking about accepting the bare minimum from friends, family, partners, bosses, people who you see on the street, right? Literally anyone. So I feel like some examples when I first think of like people that just kind of like settle for the bare minimum when they're, as someone that's a doer, talking about doing the bare minimum, is comments like, oh, that's not my job. Like somebody gets paid to clean up this stuff, so I can just like leave this there. Like perfect example, the shopping cart theory. Have you all heard the shopping cart theory? If not, it is like basically about when you take your groceries to your car, if you leave the shopping cart in the middle of the parking lot, like out astray, you're a terrible human. No, just kidding. You just like you're not a very thoughtful. That's what the theory is, okay? Maybe you just do it every once in a while because you're having a rough day or you forgot or whatever. But I think the theory is like you are a better human being. You're being the best version of yourself if you do put the shopping cart back. Because yes, somebody gets paid to collect them from the places that the carts live to back to the store, but it's not their job to chase them all around the parking lot. It's not their job to go 2 parking lots over and find their grocery carts and bring them back. That's not what they're getting paid to do. So being just like taking the extra time and putting the shopping cart back where it belongs is a testament to your character. I think that's kind of the theory. And so that's like kind of the comments that come to mind is like, my mom would always really hone in on like if we made a mess at a restaurant or something, like, yes, obviously they have to reset and clean the table no matter what, because that's restaurant service, that you clean the table because other humans sat there and new humans are going to sit there next. But they shouldn't be like scraping mac and cheese off the like counter or off the seat. Like there's standards that, you just like have to hold yourself to. And so if my brother or me would make a comment, oh, somebody's gonna clean that up, like, it's fine, we can just leave a mess, she would like nip that in the bud real fast. And same with my dad. Like, that was not something that was tolerated in my household. And I think that's kind of what stemmed into me being somebody that kind of just goes above and beyond. Or like if a piece of clothing fell in a store, or like, and maybe somebody didn't notice, or they did notice and they didn't pick it up, like going to pick it up, and maybe you're not perfectly putting it back, you don't know exactly how it goes, but you at least get it off the floor. That's like one step in the right direction. And at work, for example, if your coworker or somebody is like, oh, like somebody else is going to do that, just like we talked about in the beginning, like, oh, that's not my job, I don't get paid to do that. Correct. Although all of our job descriptions say other duties as assigned, so other duties. But you know what I mean? Like, it's not, we are a department, we are a team, we are a group that all is reaching for one common goal, to make the experiences of our students and their families and their friends and people that come to our events have a positive experience, right? Like, that's our goal. And so I think saying, oh, that's not my job, somebody else will do that, like, yeah, okay, obviously you shouldn't be taking on other people's jobs like on the daily, but somebody leaves a chair out, okay, I'm not the facilities person, so I'm not putting the chair away. That's a ridiculous thing to say, right? Like, where the chairs go, put the chair away, help out, right? And so I think that's something that I sometimes see it my specific job, but also just I've seen it all throughout life of just like people being like, oh, I don't get paid to do that, so I'm not going to do it. And again, obviously you shouldn't be taking on people's tasks every single day, but if there's something that you can help out with, just be a helping hand, and then that will, one, look better for you. They'll be more likely to say higher praises and recommend you in the future, but also it just makes everyone's lives easier. It makes your life easier because like the things are done and nobody's complaining and the tasks are done, right? Like, it's just easier to just do it than to say, oh, hey, can you go do this, or to ignore it or act like you didn't see it, right? But I think a lot of people just are like, oh, that's not my job. Oh, I don't, like, somebody's going to get paid to do that. Like, it's something that I don't have to worry about, and they don't worry about it. But I think it's a nice thing to do, to just kind of have that extra level of caution or just like attentiveness to the things that are going on around you, and not letting things just slide and, go under the radar, and actually, making an effort to just leave places better than you found them. I think that's like ultimately what the moral of, kind of being a overachiever or doing more than the bare minimum. I feel like naturally when you take those extra steps, that extra mile to make sure something's done correctly, or to help someone, or to, just do something more or better than you normally would do it, I think it improves your quality of life, right? Like, you like take the extra time at night to prep your lunch, or to lay out an outfit for tomorrow, or to just even think about an outfit that you want to wear, or to make a to-do list for tomorrow in your phone app, your notes app, or like anything that like future you will thank past you for, I think is going above and beyond, right? You don't have to be going above and beyond for everybody in the world. That's a lot, right? You don't have to be like, oh, I see every single person in the world that I pass today and like try to make their day better. Like, obviously you give people a smile, whatever, like you help hold a door for somebody. Like, those are things that we just do, right? I think that is the bare minimum. But when, thinking about ways we can go above and beyond, start with yourself, right? Start with things that you can do to make your quality of life better, because then by default, you'll make the people that you interact with's lives better. It'll be easier to interact with you because you'll feel like a more put together person. You won't be rushing to work and all late because you didn't know what to wear and you didn't have your lunch planned out. You didn't like whatever, or you didn't eat breakfast because you didn't have the thought to cook something, or you didn't even have time because you're running around, whatever it may be. Like, that affects how you move through the world and how you interact with people. And so prepping those things and taking the extra minute, and when I say minute, it literally takes a minute to lay out an outfit, maybe 5 if you're indecisive, right? Like, it takes a few minutes to put the leftovers that you're going to bring for lunch tomorrow in the specific container that you're going to put. I put everything in my lunchbox, put my lunchbox in the fridge, and I literally just have to grab my lunchbox and go, right? Maybe there's things that I don't want in the fridge. I leave them on the counter, put them in my lunchbox in the morning. Again, that's an extra 30 seconds. It's still already in its little baggie. I don't have to do that in the morning. And that saves my life. saves my life. It saves me time in the morning and makes my life easier. I'm telling you, when the days that I don't do that, there's a significant increase in my stress in the morning, in the amount of time it takes me to get ready to be able to leave the house. And it's just not as pleasant of a morning. Obviously, I'm still getting to work. I'm still doing the things I need to do. I still get to do my job when I go to work. I, still get to eat lunch if I do take the extra minute in the morning to pack it. But like, you get what I'm saying? Like, I'm still, like, even if I don't prep in the morning, I still have the bare minimum of getting to work and doing the things that I do. But I will be a happier version. I'll be a less stressed. I'll be more prepared. And just overall, I'll feel better. Like, doing those little things makes you feel better about yourself, right? And like, I think those are all important because I know for me, when I like struggle with, time management, or I move too fast and I make a small mistake on something, I just feel really down on myself. And that is something that I've been working on for literally years. So when I make mistakes as a 26-year-old, I'm like, girl, you have been working on this since you were 20. Like, why are you still moving so fast in the mornings? And it's like, okay, well, maybe I should actually take the time the night before to set myself up for success in the mornings. And then I won't get so down on myself when I am running around and I accidentally stub my toe because I'm rushing because I'm going to be late for work, or I spill something because I'm going to be late for work and I'm rushing, right? Like, that changes your morning completely. Like, if you have those few minutes back to yourself, or you get to sleep longer, right? Like, it only adds to your life, right? Like, yes, maybe you're staying up a couple of minutes later to prep your lunch, but I'm telling you, it will make your life a million times easier. And these are just examples I'm giving, right? You could put this in any area of your life. Maybe it's, in the morning, setting a timer on your coffee machine so you wake up to the smell of coffee. Like, that is something that you can do to make your mornings a little more enjoyable. Or, scheduling a time to go read for 30 minutes, like anything to just go above and beyond for you, right? And then naturally those will become daily habits that you just do. And then you can kind of start, okay, how can I go above and beyond for my family this week or this month? Or how can I go above and beyond for my friends when they need me? Because if you start to try to like go above and beyond for everybody all at once, it's almost impossible, right? We've talked about goal setting and tons of things like this on these episodes, but like, you can't just like add a million things into your life at once. I mean, you can, but it might be hard. And when you inevitably struggle, it's hard to get back into, feeling motivated to kind of tackle those goals again. So I think, this is the same for, this, when you're trying to maybe not be so bare minimum-y, start in one area of your life. Start with your mornings. How can you make your mornings better? How can you make your time at work better? And then eventually, how can I, like I just said, make my friend's life better? How can I make my mom's life better this week? Whatever it may be. And then, gradually it'll all become easy to kind of add those things in. Whereas if you just try to like be the best version of yourself in every area of your life, and every friendship and relationship and partnership you have, like it's going to be tough, right? It's going to be a lot to do all at once. So this is exactly like that with any goal. You want to start small. I also want to say something that I'm trying to do with goal setting is make non-negotiables for myself. So one of my non-negotiables is that, I've talked about this before, that I make my bed every single day. And there are days where I leave the house without making my bed, right? But since it's my non-negotiable and I've made that promise to myself to make my bed every single day, I will literally come home from work, make my bed, get back in it to take a nap, and then make it again. Like, or I'll, maybe leave it messy that time, but like to like still feel good that I've accomplished my goal, I do it no matter what. Even if I'm doing it at 11:50 p.m. and I'm going to get right back into bed, mess it all up again. Although I don't sleep under my comforter, so it's literally just like tilting the pillows back and pulling my blanket up. So again, doesn't take me long to make my bed. But my dog sleeps in my bed with me. He likes to pull the comforter up sometimes. So like no matter what, make my bed every single day. Again, like I said, if that's at 11:59 before I get back into it to go to bed for the night, I will do that. And that is something that I think we have to be more disciplined with, is when we set goals for ourselves, and, going as strict as calling them non-negotiables, I think is something that kind of clicks in my brain more, because I always set goals. I set goals for how I want today to go, right? I literally last night wrote out hour by hour how I wanted my morning to go before I go to work later. And I'm like 2 hours behind that schedule because I wanted to sleep longer. Like, it's hard, right? It's just hard. And I know, and then something else comes up for work and things happen. So it's obviously not always going to go like exactly how you plan it, but saying, okay, no matter what happens, if I do nothing else this day, this is my non-negotiable, whether that's working out, whether it's going on a walk, calling somebody that you love, laying out tomorrow's outfit. Find a non-negotiable that you can implement into your life and stick to it. And again, make it realistic, right? Like, it's very realistic for me to make my bed every day, especially me. Like I just said, it's literally tilting the pillows back up and folding a blanket, right? Like, it's very realistic to do that. It takes me about 30 seconds. Find something that you can do that is going to be realistic, right? Laying out an outfit, I think, is also extremely realistic. Or again, just like thinking about what you're going to wear. Okay, I'm going to wear my black leggings and my black Arcadia lacrosse hoodie. I think about what you're going to wear, get up, and then you are already one step ahead of yourself, right? Make that your non-negotiable, so that when you get to that point in the morning, or you get, to whatever point in your day where you've made that non-negotiable, you're like, oh, wow, my life is so much easier. And you just come home to an already made bed, or you wake up to an outfit laid out, and it's like, wow, thanks, past Al, right? Like, future Al is so grateful that past Al, or present Al is grateful that past Al thought of her, right? Like, how nice. And it just saves you a little bit of time. And I think framing them as non-negotiables is sometimes the way to go when you're trying to implement discipline into your life. And that's my word of the year, discipline. So I'm trying to find ways that kind of click in my brain for me to really stick to the tasks and the goals that I want to accomplish, because I feel like I'm in an era where I'm like trying to be a little bit harder on myself, but while still balancing like being kind and listening to my body. That's hard sometimes, because especially as like a ex-athlete, like there was no like listening to my body and like taking an off day. Like, that was, if you're my athletic trainer or coach, stop listening. But I literally played through like 2 concussions in college, and obviously I definitely should have, and we literally signed papers saying that you will tell someone if you get hit in the head. But in my head, in my concussed noggin, that was the last thing I was going to do. I did not want to miss a game. I was like, it's the second to last game of the season. I'm just going to play one more game and then I'll get the help I need, right? And don't do that, right? Do not do that. Your brain is way more important than playing any sort of sport game or doing literally anything. But that was what felt important to me at the time. And I don't even know how I brought this up. That's the concussions lingering for you. But I was saying, like, as an athlete, you just kind of feel like there's no taking breaks. So it's hard for me, even in 4 years post-college. Yeah. And, I value all of those things that I learned as an athlete, but I'm trying to unlearn a lot of them, because it's challenging, right? To kind of give yourself grace in areas where you never thought you were allowed to give yourself grace. So I say that because I know a lot of people listening to this are in the sports world and also feel those things. But it is important to, have that balance of giving yourself grace, but also holding yourself accountable. So that's why I say pick a non-negotiable, and no matter what, it's laying out my outfit for work, packing my lunch. And you can have a few, right? If there's things that you're working on, like making my bed is so like second nature that it doesn't need to be a non-negotiable anymore. That was a goal I set my senior year of college, and I've been doing it pretty much every single day since then. And so that's not something I need to be like intentional about. So that is something I can kind of say, okay, I can add in a new non-negotiable there where I want to work out certain times a week, whatever it is, or be more intentional about training PUDA on certain things. Like, there's different things that I may want to work on that I don't need to focus so much on the making my bed aspect anymore. I can focus on those areas. And that's literally the whole point of goal setting, is to make a goal, right? And sometimes there's goals where you just like get to this grand goal and you achieve it once, right? But if you're trying to implement daily goals, habits into your life, you have to build them up over time to the point where it's not something you have to be so intentional about. And then, you're naturally going above and beyond for yourself because it's just something you've integrated into your life over years of work, right? And it's okay for it to take that long, especially with things that are challenging, right? I grew up and I didn't touch my bed. I left my bed as it was when I got out of it in the morning, and I came home to a made bed because my mother is an angel sent from heaven itself. And that's why in college I was like, okay, I need to actually like do something about this, because coming home to this messy ass room every day is not bringing me peace. And it took 3 years for me to even want to start trying to do that. And then I eventually was like, okay, let's take the next step. Let's go above and beyond here and make our beds, right? And then you come home, and when you have an entire essay to write in one night, you're not like feeling this clutter of the messy bed and your shit all over the floor. You're able to just kind of think clearly and knock out your 6-page essay that's due at 11:59, right? So I think that's a perfect example of going above and beyond. And like saying above and beyond honestly feels like you're doing these big drastic things. Making your bed, I know I've said making my bed 80 times in this episode. It's just the one thing that keeps coming to mind. But doing like a small task like that is not a hard thing to do, right? It's not really going to take long or take much energy out of you at all, right? But it has a big impact. And so that's where the above and beyond comes in, right? Doing little things to have a big impact on your life is huge. All right, now that we've talked about 86ing, doing just the bare minimum, we are going to be talking about 86ing, accepting the bare minimum from other people. And this is something that I'll probably have a lot less to say on because it's something that I'm still working on and still working through and figuring out. But I think the moral of the story here is that we teach people how to treat us. And if you never heard that quote before, I don't know if it's a quote or just a theory, a thing. But the first time I heard that, I was like, oh, because when we accept behavior from people and we don't set a boundary, we don't tell them that it makes us feel a certain type of way, we don't correct the behavior, we don't say, oh, that actually makes me really upset or frustrated or hurt, we're teaching them that it's okay to do that to us. And at some point, it becomes our fault. I don't like the word fault, but like it becomes on us to, teach them how to treat you, right? If you let them get away with something at a certain point, months in, years in, you can't be mad at them anymore, right? You let them get away with it for this long. No shit, they're going to keep, treating you this way or not considering your feelings or whatever it may be. So I feel like that is kind of the moral of the story here with accepting the bare minimum from people is the first time that somebody does the bare minimum, and I'm talking friendships, families, siblings, cousins, aunts, uncles, moms, dads, grandparents, partners, bosses, literally anyone that you interact with ever. The first time they do something that you feel like they can put a little more effort in to make your life easier, to make a bigger impact on, the way that it's making you feel positively, you have to kind of say something, right? You got to call them out. And I think that's really hard to do, especially for people like myself who are not very confrontational at all. I don't ever want to have an argument with somebody. I don't want to, make people feel bad. I feel like I sometimes I have such high expectations, and I feel like in partnerships and, close friendships, I feel like I can like nag sometimes because of the high expectations I have. And I don't ever want to make somebody feel like they're not good enough or they're not doing enough or they're, that makes me feel terrible, right? That is the last thing I want to do. But I think there's a healthy and positive way to kind of set your boundaries and set your expectations. And if somebody's not meeting them, you do not have to stay in a relationship with them. You don't have to stay in a friendship with them. You might have to keep working for them until you're able to find a different job or something like that. But, there's ways to make all of those different relationships better for yourself by standing up for yourself and not just accepting the bare minimum, right? And you have to remember there's different bare minimums for different people. So like my bare minimum might be different from my partner's bare minimum, but that's something to obviously talk about when you get into romantic relationships. But even with your friendships, like talking about, how you like to be treated as a friend, what kind of support you need as a friend, what support you can give as a friend so that they can expect that from you. And having those conversations, I think helps eliminate people assuming that other people are doing the bare minimum. Or again, if I have a different bare minimum definition than someone else, I can have those conversations with people and be like, okay, they're doing this and they think that that is going above and beyond because of the way they were raised. Maybe their bare minimum was even lower than what they're doing here. So you give them a little bit of grace. Whereas on my end, like, and I joke all the time with my parents, I tell my dad, I'm like, Dad, I'm never going to get married because you have set the bar so freaking high for a partner to a woman. And I like, even like to me, he's just like, it will do anything ever. Like, he's just like genuinely my hero. And I'm like, how am I supposed to find somebody that is going to live up to my standards? Because that my dad has set, right? Like, it's not even my fault. So I joke with him all the time, but I'm like, seriously, it's something that, I'm so blessed and lucky to have, but not everybody have that experience. So when we think about the bare minimum, you have to kind of interrogate people about what their bare minimum looks like to them. And then you kind of go from there, right? But then also you come up with a group bare minimum, right? Me and my friends, we have, some conversations about ways that we like to support each other and be there for each other. Relationships, when I've had partners in the past, you talk about things that, that are important to you and things that you expect to happen and things that they expect from you. And those are things you kind of talk about. And once you talk about those things, because again, if you don't share those things, you can't really blame the other person. Once you talk about them, if they're still doing the bare minimum and it's like getting to a point where you are not seeing improvement happening, or you don't see there's a way for improvement to happen, or they're just not making the effort, that is a very viable reason to be like, okay, this is not for me. I'm going to leave this friendship, leave this relationship, take a step back, maybe see if we can reevaluate in the future, whatever it may be. But it's not something that we just have to accept. And I think that's really important to remind people of, because I know for myself, especially with friends and relationships, I'm like, I don't want to start all over and explain to somebody why I am the way I am and my traumas and things that have happened, and just go through all the what's your favorite this and all the little like get to know you questions. Like, once I know someone so well, it's just like I want it to work as best as it can, right? But then obviously things happen and they don't, and that's human and okay. But it's not a good enough reason to stay with somebody that's just going through the motions and not bringing any joy or much to your life, just because you don't want to start over with somebody new. Not a good enough reason, right? So I know, as hard as it is to kind of feel like, oh, you're starting over, or you wasted this time on this person, like, it's going to end up better for you in the future because you walked away at a time where it wasn't as worse as it could get, in terms of, like, just somebody not putting in a lot of energy and effort towards you. And yeah, so I think it's just an important reminder to have, and a reflection point to, make sure you communicate with your partners and your friends and your family on the things that are important to you and what you expect from these relationships. And hopefully those people can share their expectations back to you, and you can work towards having a common ground of, this is the bare minimum that we accept from each other. And honestly, this is where we really should be. But if we're having a tough time, this is as low as we can go. But yeah, I think it's just important to kind of discuss those things. And again, something I'm still working through as a 26-year-old, and, working towards not just letting people treat me however they want to be, treating someone that day. I think it's important to say, obviously we give grace when grace is due, but there's times where people need to be called out for doing the bare minimum and not, considering your feelings, or not putting in the effort to make you happy, or, feel better, or whatever it is. I think that's all very valid and okay to kind of reflect on and be like, okay, maybe this isn't for me, right? So I say all that, again, not much advice there, just a reminder that you're worth more than the bare minimum, right? And so, reflect on that and just remind yourself of that when you're going through friendship troubles and relationship troubles and family troubles. Like, you don't have to stick around and talk to people and be in people's lives, or have people in your lives that are not making your life better, right? You get to choose who you spend your time with. And obviously, if you're like 14 and you live with your parents, like, obviously that's a tougher situation. But again, reaching out to the people that you have to support you is really important. And then when you're of age where you can, make decisions on who you want to physically spend your time with, make sure you're spending time with people that go above and beyond and think of you and, think of things that are going to make you happy, or they see something that reminds them of you and they want to send it to you. Like, those are the people that you want to surround yourself with and be around. So final reminder that you don't have to settle for the bare minimum, right? And to teach people how to treat you, right? Set those boundaries, set those expectations from the jump. And I think that's something that I'm working on as I make new friends and go into new relationships with all different sorts of people in my life, is something that I want to kind of lead with and kind of set those expectations and teach them how I want to be treated from day one. So yeah, I think those are all of my thoughts on doing and accepting just the bare minimum, right? We want more than that. I think we deserve more than that in 2025. Am I right, ladies? Thank you all so much for listening. If no one's told you recently, I love you and I'm proud of you and you're kicking life's butt. Reminder to subscribe on YouTube, follow us on TikTok and Instagram, and, leave comments, reviews, thoughts, opinions, things you liked, disliked, whatever it may be. I also had a couple people reach out to me about the sweatshirt, so I'm going to start trying to see if I can order some of those for some people that would want them. Yeah, I think that would be really awesome to have people wearing those. So again, if that's something you want, reach out to me. I'm getting on it, I promise. Okay, I love you all. See you next week. Bye.